In the shadows of myth and reality, monsters stir. From ancient legends to modern nightmares, we explore the creatures that haunt our stories, and sometimes, our lives. Welcome to Among Monsters podcast, where the line between man and monsters is thinner than you think.
Final Control, Randall Coffland and the St. Charles double murder. I'm Damien Vale, and tonight on Among Monsters we cast our gaze upon a truth both mundane and monstrous, that the deepest horrors often wear the familiar face of love, twisted into the suffocating grip of obsession. This is a tale of a man who believed control was the purest form of devotion, and that if his world dared to shift from his grasp, then no one, not even his own kin, could truly possess it. On a quiet day, March 10th, 2017, the peaceful tree-lined suburb of St. Charles, Illinois, ceased to be just a place on a map. It became, instead, a silent, blood-stained stage for a tragedy that would shock the very soul of seasoned investigators. In a luxury condo where laughter once echoed, two teenage girls met a brutal end. Their mother, battered and broken, clung to life by a fragile thread. And the architect of this unholy devastation was not a stranger from the shadows, but a figure intimately known, a man who shared their very name, their father, Randall Coffland. This is not merely a story etched in the cold stone of murder. It is a haunting symphony of ego's crescendo, a chilling ballad of emotional manipulation, and a stark testament to the most insidious form of control, the kind that masquerades as profound affection, until, in its terrifying final act, it unravels into absolute destruction. The cracks in the porcelain life. Randall Coffland. The name itself seems to vanish into the fabric of everyday life. He was not a man sculpted for grand stages or notorious headlines. He walked unseen in crowds, a phantom of the middle-class dream, inhabiting a quiet existence. He and his wife, Anjum, known to all as Amy, had twin daughters, Brittany and Tiffany. A family portrait, painted in muted suburban hues, a home meticulously kept, blending flawlessly into the backdrop of St. Charles, a community lulled by its own tranquility. But behind the polished veneer of that front door, the Coffland household was a crucible of silent torment, a stage where peace itself was a fragile, fleeting guest. Later, from the shattered fragments of memory, friends and family would piece together the portrait of Randall. He was a spider, weaving invisible webs of control, each thread taut with obsession. He was a storm, brewing in unpredictable skies, prone to sudden bursts of emotional volatility. His marriage to Amy was a ship tossed on a tempestuous sea, steadily deteriorating with each passing year. As the twin girls blossomed, Randall's grip tightened, a relentless vice on their nascent lives, their movements, their nascent independence, even the very airwaves of their technology. Amy, meanwhile, a flower wilting under an oppressive sun, seemed to shrink, her essence slowly diminishing under the crushing weight of his unyielding domination. By the twilight of 2016, their marriage, already fractured, finally shattered completely. Amy, gathering the fragments of her resolve, moved out, pulling her daughters into the precarious light of a new beginning. Randall remained a solitary figure in the Grand Condo on the east side of St. Charles, a monument to his crumbling dominion. The echoes of a losing battle. From that pivotal moment, the very axis of their universe tilted. Amy and her twins, Brittany and Tiffany, began the arduous climb towards rebuilding, their steps tentative but resolute. The girls, vibrant at 16, were canvases of potential, bright minds, artistic souls, two halves of a singular heart, inseparable in their journey. Friends spoke of their innate kindness, their deep empathy, their luminous spirits. Their mother, a phoenix rising from the ashes of a suffocating marriage, dared to dream of a fresh start, a foothold of independence wrestled from the clutches of a possessive past. Randall, however, stood on the precipice of an abyss. He was losing control, the very bedrock of his existence, and he felt it, a cold, creeping dread that consumed him. When Amy departed, Randall remained in the opulent cage of their luxury condo. To the unsuspecting eyes of the outside world, he appeared composed, a man weathering a marital storm with stoic grace. But within the confines of his own mind, a tempest raged. He was spiraling, a vortex of rage and resentment. His life, once seemingly defined by the comforting routines of fatherhood, now revolved around a singular consuming purpose: to punish his wife for daring to break free. The messages began. A digital venom seeping into Amy's world, emails, voicemails, a relentless barrage. Passive-aggressive whispers at first, then growing darker, more menacing. He reminded Amy, a chilling echo in the digital ether, that he still held the keys to their daughters' phones, that his hand still controlled their financial currents, that he would never let them go. In the warped lens of Randall's perception, his daughters were not distinct souls. They were mere extensions of his very being, precious possessions in his private kingdom. And now they were slipping through his grasping fingers. By the early days of March 2017, Amy had begun to fortify her emotional distance, severing the last tendrils of his insidious manipulation. But Randall, in his escalating madness, had already etched his decision in the dark chambers of his heart. He would reclaim power, not through the soft pleas of reconciliation, not through humble entreaties. No, he would orchestrate the final, devastating act of his absolute control. Murder sim. The unveiling of the monster. On the fateful morning of March 10th, 2017, Randall sent Amy a message, a siren song disguised as an olive branch. He asked her to come to the condo, claiming Brittany and Tiffany were there, that he simply wished for a family discussion. Peaceful, he promised. Amy, her heart heavy with a mother's desperate hope, agreed. She stepped into the web. It was a trap. At some point during the agonizing visit, Amy sought a moment of reprieve, stepping into the bathroom. It was then, in that fleeting instant of separation, that Randall made his move. He drew a handgun, a cold harbinger of the doom he carried. First, he turned it upon his daughters, his own flesh and blood. Each received a single shot to the head. Brittany's life was extinguished instantly, a bright flame snuffed out in a horrifying blink. Tiffany, mortally wounded, lingered only for a few agonizing moments before her light, too, faded into the eternal dark. Then, with the chill calculation of a detached puppeteer, Randall turned the gun on Amy. He fired twice, hitting her in the legs, a deliberate act of torture, a prelude to a living hell. Having delivered his devastating blow, he then settled himself, picked up the phone, and with unnerving composure dialed 911. His voice, calm and detached, reported the unspeakable carnage he had wrought. When officers arrived at the opulent condo, the air thick with the stench of gunpowder and death, Randall Coffland was already gone. He had delivered the final self-inflicted shot to his own head, a period mark at the end of his monstrous manifesto. Inside, the scene was a tableau of chilling desolation. Brittany and Tiffany lay side by side on the couch, twin sacrifices to a father's monstrous ego, each with a single precise bullet wound, a testament not to passion but to cold, calculated intent. Amy, in unimaginable agony, her blood staining the pristine floor, was miraculously still breathing. And Randall, the instrument of death still clutched in his lifeless hand, was slumped over, his final act complete. The entire family, once a unit, destroyed in merciless minutes, reduced to an unspeakable tableau. What made this case so chilling wasn't merely the raw brutality. It was the meticulous, surgical precision of Randall's orchestration. He had planned the murders with the chilling foresight of a deranged conductor. He had systematically removed all the bullets from the remaining guns in the house, ensuring Amy had no means of defense, no chance of retaliation. He had penned notes, recorded voicemails, even rehearsed the very cadence of his 911 call. It was a macabre performance, a final horrific act staged to irrevocably etch his power into the very fabric of their destruction. Amy survived, a ghost in her own body, clinging to the thinnest thread of life. She would later recall Randall's final chilling words, a venomous whisper delivered just before he ended his own existence. "You can't have them, and now you can't have me." That was his ultimate, possessive declaration. If he could not possess his family wholly, absolutely, then he would annihilate it, ensuring no one else could ever claim a piece. The lingering echoes of grief and warning. In the harrowing days that followed the murders, the community of St. Charles found itself paralyzed, shrouded in a collective grief so profound it seemed to absorb all light. Candlelight vigils flickered like fragile hopes for Brittany and Tiffany, their innocence forever stained. Their high school opened its doors, not for learning, but for counseling, a sanctuary for a student body reeling from a loss that defied comprehension. Friends tied purple ribbons, the twins' favorite color, a quiet act of remembrance, a silent scream for two vibrant lives extinguished too soon. But behind the veil of tears, a haunting question resonated, a persistent echo in the stunned silence. How did no one see this coming? In hindsight, the signs were there, woven into the very fabric of Randall's controlling behavior, stretched over years like invisible, tightening chains. Amy had, with immense courage, repeatedly attempted to sever herself from the relationship's suffocating grip. There were the insidious emails, the veiled threats, the subtle, creeping abuses that never escalated to physical violence until the final catastrophic moment. No prior police calls for domestic violence. No restraining orders had pierced the illusion of normalcy. No public red flags had flared brightly enough to warn of the impending storm. And that, in its chilling truth, is precisely what made this situation so lethally effective. This was not a crime born of sudden, blinding passion. It was a meticulously executed crime of entitlement. Randall Coffland did not simply snap. He made a chilling, deliberate decision. He decided that his daughters would not be allowed to live in a world where they were free from his absolute dominion. He decided that his wife would endure, but only to suffer the unbearable weight of his monstrous act. He decided that the last word, the ultimate act of power, would belong solely to him. In the shattering aftermath, Amy Coffland, though broken, emerged with an indomitable bravery. She made public statements, her voice a testament to her daughters' kindness, their dreams, their luminous beauty, but also a stark warning of the insidious signs others might miss. She laid bare Randall's manipulation, his relentless obsession with control, his desperate need to dominate every single decision, and she issued a clear, resonant call to others. If someone attempts to control your freedom, your choices, your very sense of self, they are not protecting you. They are preparing to possess you. Randall Coffland wielded emotional abuse like a slow-acting poison, seeping into the foundations of their lives. And when that insidious venom ceased to achieve his desired effect, he resorted to bullets, a final, definitive act of absolute control. It's a tempting, comforting delusion to view these stories as isolated aberrations, as inexplicable flukes, as senseless explosions of violence divorced from any discernible pattern. But the truth, the chilling, unsettling truth, is far more pervasive. Every year in the United States, thousands of souls, predominantly women and children, are extinguished by intimate partners or family members. And a disturbing multitude of these cases begin in precisely the same subtle, insidious way. With emotional control, with possessiveness cloaked in the guise of love, with threats veiled in concern, escalating incrementally from psychological abuse to devastating physical violence. The people who knew Randall Coffland described him with words like polite, quiet, a seemingly devoted family man, and therein lies the profound, terrifying point. Monsters do not always snarl. Sometimes they smile. Sometimes they meticulously pay the bills. Sometimes they take their daughters out for ice cream and tenderly hug their wives goodnight. And sometimes they wait. They wait until their carefully constructed world of control begins to fray, until their grip loosens. And then, with terrifying finality, they act. Brittany and Tiffany Coffland, bright constellations of hope, never got to live out their dreams. They never got to walk across a graduation stage, to know the blossoming of true love, to become the artists, dancers, mothers they were destined to be. Their vibrant lives were stolen, not by a stranger from the dark, but by the very person who was supposed to shield and protect them above all others. Randall Coffland didn't just kill his daughters. He mercilessly erased their futures. He transformed their sacred home into a brutal crime scene. And in his final, grotesque act, he ensured his name would be forever intertwined with theirs, a macabre monument to his ego. That is not a legacy. That is the ultimate theft of innocence, of life, of remembrance itself. We remember Randall Coffland not for the man he presented himself to be, but for the monstrous, unforgivable acts he committed. And we remember Brittany and Tiffany for who they were, their light, their kindness, their boundless potential. not for the horrific manner in which they died. This story is not about giving a monster the final word, allowing his destructive narrative to dominate. It is about taking that word back, reclaiming the narrative from the clutches of evil. It is about recognizing the insidious patterns of control, of coercion, of isolation that so often precede the devastating eruption of domestic violence. It is about understanding with chilling clarity that monsters often come with clean hands, pressed collars, and chillingly familiar faces. They don't always break down doors. Sometimes they hold them open, a deceptive invitation. But once inside, they meticulously set the rules, and sometimes in their twisted design, they write the ending. This has been Among Monsters. I'm Damien Vale. Until next time, trust your instincts, protect your peace, and remember that silence is not safety. It is often the chilling, pregnant quiet before the storm breaks. Stay safe out there. Sources.
Thank you for listening to Among Monsters podcast. Find more episodes of Among Monsters podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, or anywhere premium podcasts exist. Email us at amongmonsterspodcast@gmail.com.